Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and in this episode we have another very special guest. This is an icon from the 80s, from the MTV days, back when MTV actually stood for music television. And this gentleman, Thomas Dolby, was all over it, especially with his hits Blinded Me, or She Blinded Me with Science, and Hyperactive. After those days, he became, he started a software company called Beatnik, and one of his big claims to fame there was creating the famous ringtone for the Nokia phones, back when Nokia ruled the cell phone roost. And he sold or shut that company down. He wrote a book called The Speed of Sound. Excellent book. It's still available, and you can buy it for your own library, and I highly recommend it. And he went on from there to become music director for the TED Talks that we all love to listen to, and currently is a faculty member at the Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins University, teaching on music. And when he's not doing that, he's on the road, and that's why he and I talked about his tour that's coming up and the treatment that he's giving to his iconic hits. So you'll definitely want to catch him in concert. If he's coming nearby you, you can Google his website, but it's thomasdolby.net, I believe. And so you'll want to go there, check that out, and catch his show if he's nearby. He's not coming near me, otherwise I'd be catching his show. While this interview is going on, if you don't mind, would you hit like, especially if you're liking it? And if you're not already a subscriber, please hit subscribe. It is free of charge. I will not be charging you any extra for that. So without any further ado, here's my first, or what I hope are many more interviews to come, with the legendary Thomas Dolby. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care.
Hello, Randy.
Hello, Thomas. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. Where are you clicking in from?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Ah, okay. Just up a ways from me.
Where are you?
I typically am in the Smoky Mountains way down south, as the Beatles said.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm actually out of town today, so I'm not in my normal environment, but so I get a little echo in here that I've tried to correct. You would die laughing if you saw what I did. The cushions I borrowed and all that.
It sounds pretty good. Now,
well,
do you use the audio? Do you use the audio from this video? What do you use?
Yeah, I use both the video and the audio, and I mean, if you have other preferences, I'll be happy to accommodate. But I typically,
no, that's fine. Just so I know.
Pretty simple stuff here. So, well, first of all, thank you for all the years of great music, man. That's I'm always honored to be able to talk to those who contributed to the soundtrack of my youth, of my life, and all that. And you certainly are one of those. And so, thank you for all those years of enjoyment. I really do appreciate it. So, so you are heading back out on tour. Tell fans what's bringing this on, what they can expect, what sparked the timing of this run of shows, that kind of thing.
I wanted to reimagine some of my songs and some music that has influenced me and been important to me over the years, including the other artists that I've played with, produced, performed with live, and so on. In my memoir, which is called The Speed of Sound, I tell a lot of stories and interesting anecdotes about some of the times that I've spent in the studio, on stage, hanging out with interesting musicians over the years. And very often, when I play live, people come backstage or come to the merch desk and ask me those questions. So I've decided to sort of weave those together into a narrative storyline. And I've been doing bits of that over the years, in my live shows, but I'm actually sort of purposely structuring the set so that I can tell the story of the sort of narrative through line of my musical journey. With the helps with some great additional musicians. I usually play solo, but on this occasion I have a full band. And that includes Gail Ann Dorsey on bass and vocals, who was a Bowie side person for years and years at the end of his career. He was a great alto singer and a wonderful bassist. Andrew Lipka, who is a local Philadelphia singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, composer, conductor, orchestrator. And Matt Hector, who's a drummer I've worked with in the past, who's famous for playing with Iggy Pop and Tom York and various others. So they'll be joining me on stage. Gail Ann Dorsey will be opening for me with a solo set of her own. And we'll be sharing some of the lead vocals because some of the songs that I quote in there, or pieces of music that I quote in there, require vocals other than my own. So I've got guests with me. And we're really using this tour to sort of routine that material to figure out the flow, figure out the harmonies, figure out my shtick when I talk to the audience, with a view to a larger scale performance at the end of this year or next year in front of a symphony orchestra.
Oh, wow. That would be amazing. I hope it's somewhere near where I live when when you do that. I love seeing the bands and your peers doing that. I've seen Foreigner do it and a couple of others, and it just adds a whole nother dimension to already great music, I think.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll be doing it with Foreigner next month in Las Vegas and in San Diego. One of the stories, for example, that I tell is when I was 21 years old, I was working as a street musician in Paris, strumming Dylan songs for Japanese tourists, and I get a call from one Mick Jones, and I assume this is going to be Mick Jones from The Clash. And I'm like, yeah, The Clash. It turned out to be the other Mick Jones, who's also a great guy. And I didn't know much about Foreigner, but they were doing a new album, Foreigner 4, and they had ballads on the album, which they hadn't really done before. And they were looking for somebody to sort of build some lush synthesizer textures, behind their ballad. So they flew me over to New York for a day to sort of try out, and they really liked what I did. And they pretty much left me alone in the studio at night, because during the day, Lou Gramm was doing his vocals. And they wanted this sort of lush intro for Waiting for a Girl Like You. But I only had a monophonic mini Moog at the time, which plays one note at a time, and it's kind of hard to do very lush sounding textures with just one note. But I'd seen a documentary about 10cc and the making of I'm Not in Love. And they said that what they did is they recorded like a track of ooze on each track of a multi-track. And then they sort of played the faders on the mixing board like it was a Mellotron or something. I thought, well, I could do the same thing with synths. So I recorded long notes with my Moog into some effects. And then I played the faders on the mixing desk and created that intro for Waiting for a Girl Like You. Wow. And so next month with Foreigner, I'm actually going to be doing that live on stage, but doing it with an orchestra, and I'll be conducting the sections of the orchestra to illustrate the point.
Very cool. I interviewed Mick. In fact, talking about the orchestras, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and they were getting ready to perform with that orchestra and chorale there, which was just absolutely amazing. But it was the only time I got to interview him. It was by phone before I started doing the Zoom thing and before COVID, just before COVID. And what a great guy! What a legacy! What a history that guy has! And the band keeps changing, but that new vocalist they have, Louis Maldonado, I always have to trip over his name, but he's pretty good. He's doing pretty good to fill Kelly Hansen's shoes, and Kelly did great filling in for Lou's. But they, which casino or which resort are they going to be doing that at in Vegas?
I think it's the Venetian.
Oh, nice place. Very nice place.
Nice place, yeah.
How I read basically, and you just confirmed it, that I call it test marketing, what you're doing, tweaking your show and that type of thing. I know you have a background too, and you started your own software company. I was 20 years in the telecom business, and then data storage and all that. So I don't consider myself a techie. I know enough to be dangerous, very dangerous. But how did, I'm very intrigued by that part of your life and your career. How much, when you went into the software business, into Beatnik and Headspace, when you went into it, how much of the music business affected how you did the software business? And then now that you're kind of out of it, how has the tech side of the world affected how you handle your music business, your creation, all that kind of stuff?
I guess mainly, I could always get in for a meeting at like Google or Yahoo or one of those companies, because it turned out they wanted backstage tickets for the Stones when they come through next month or something like that. So it was a bit of a novelty to them at the time in Silicon Valley to come across a rock musician. This is really before, Apple sort of hit on the whole music model and everything. In fact, music, not only music, but sound was really a dirty word, in the early 90s in Silicon Valley. Most companies would feel that, having sound on computers would annoy the person in the next cubicle while he's trying to do his spreadsheets, A lot of computers didn't even have speakers in them. And if you remember, the first sound on the internet was very crunchy, and because of the modems we had back then, it was really poor quality. But the thing that really struck me was, if a web page was a brochure, then it would have taken forever to download. So instead, we had like little icons and little graphics that were linked together by HTML code. And this is the way MIDI and samples work. MIDI is just the notes, the data, and the samples, the chunks of audio. So I thought, well, the right way to do sound over the internet is actually using a description language and then chunks of audio. So we made this synthesizer engine that allowed you to do that over the web. So over the course of the 90s, millions of people downloaded our software and played around with it. It was all completely for free. Funded for me by VCs, and eventually an IPO that never happened. But when the IPO didn't happen, what we were left with was a deal with Nokia phones. Nokia also needed an efficient way to do polyphonic ringtones on mass market cell phones. And so they licensed the Beatnik synthesizer, and that's what you hear when you hear that Nokia ringtone going off. And they shipped it in 2 or 3 billion phones around the world.
Gosh, nice. I'm sure it made you quite happy.
Well, it made me happy. The irony was that I was always known as the guy that sort of brought warmth and humanity to synthesizers, and now I was annoying people all over the world every time that dee-dee-dee went off,
Well, now Apple has that one, the xylophone type of or timbre type of tone on there, but everybody knows it when they hear it, right? It's there's
been iconic sounds over the years, like the Intel Inside thing, and the startup sound on Macs and things like that. I think Brian Eno did one of them. They used Microsoft used the Stone Start Me Up at one point. Sound's was always a peripheral thing, in the software world, until Apple basically became the company they are because of the what they did with the little portable audio players,
the iPod,
with the iPod, and then it after that, they took over, like after MP3.com and Napster and stuff had failed, the record companies had failed. Apple came in pretty late to the game with iTunes, but the history books will record that Steve Jobs single-handedly revolutionized the music business. History is funny like that.
Yeah, for me, I just one of my sound baffles just fell on me here. So, I'm not what you call an early adopter like you appear to be. I mean, you take new technology and see what you can do with it. I'm still wearing platform shoes. I'm kidding about that, but I'm a late adopter, not an early adopter. But when they were going to combine the iPod with the iPhone, I thought, no way, I don't want to, I don't want that. Now I can't live without it, right? So just the right people know how to have that foresight. Where do you, well, first of all, I want to ask you, you mentioned your book, and I got it when you first came out with it. I think Joanne Geffen was handling the publicity on that at the time, and I don't know what happened. It's been several years ago since you wrote that book, and I remember reaching out. I don't remember why we couldn't meet up because I wanted to talk to you about that book, and I didn't have time to reread it for this interview. But I'm curious, are you going to be bringing, or are you going to be offering the book for sale at your shows, or is that still available? How's that going to work?
Yeah, no, it's still available. And I mean, there's VIP tickets available for my shows with a meet and greet, and I'll be autographing stuff there. A lot of people have been really fascinated by the book because it the first part of it talks about the music industry and growing up in the 70s and 80s in London, punk rock, electronic music, then through Live Aid, The Wall, all the stuff that I did. And then the second part is really about, entrepreneurship, in Silicon Valley. And some people have said to me, I kind of switched off halfway through. You go to San Francisco and I'm best known over there for what I did with Beatnik. And some people are just really interested to see sort of both sides of it, because I think that the trick of being an artist is balancing art and commerce. It's like you got to pay the rent, you got to bring value to the investors, but you also have to stay true to yourself as an artist. And that's a balancing trick, which is not for the faint-hearted.
Well, and it's funny you should mention that, because that's one thing I was going to bring up, and it's especially tied to your book and such. There's a lot of brilliant musicians and artists out there who just really suck at business. And then there's always the suits in the industry that kind of screw up the artistry of the business. And then there's those rare birds like yourself and maybe a Joe Bonamassa or somebody like that who get both sides of it and seem to master it pretty darn well. Does that create any unique kind of conflicts for you if I can say it for you, when you're so good at both? What kind of unique conflicts that maybe we don't see does that balance create for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think these days you have to be a marketer, a business person, as well as a musician, because there's tens of thousands of other guys out there competing for the same space. And it's not about having a record company to blow your trumpet. I mean, most artists don't like to blow their own trumpet. So it's like you wake up in the morning, you don't want to be getting on the phone trying to promote your music and trying to hype yourself up all the time. That just doesn't come naturally to a lot of artists. Some it does, but to most of us, we prefer to stay humble about our music and let somebody else be, the cheerleader. But yeah, no, I mean, so that's the issue really, is that when I started out, you'd have a team of people that were, trumpeting your music, every day, and the success hopefully would come from that. But these days, you're not going to make that kind of a splash unless you're willing to be extremely pushy about your music.
Yeah, that is interesting. And what I find from my side of the microphone is when I do these interviews, and I'm proud of what I do. I've done over 600 of them. I'm stunned at where those artists or their people don't flag all of the interviews that they sit for. I mean, I know it's not a convenient thing for artists to do, but you'd think that after they've done it, they would say, yeah, this is what I've done for the last 3 weeks, is set for an infinite number of these things. And here they all are, if you want to check them out. They don't do that. And I know I would appreciate seeing my interviews out there, because that helps drive traffic. It helps further your message, that type of thing. But you're right. It's stunning to me for a group of people that work for the applause. They kind of stop short in certain key areas that might fuel that a little bit more. It's an interesting. Yeah,
I mean, I think the challenge really, Randy, is there's so many streams of information coming at consumers from all sides all the time. And the days when you go on a website and click on a link or a series of links to read different articles about your favorite artists, nobody's got time for that these days, because you're constantly you got your feed coming through, and, there's like a python eating an antelope, and it's like, what time have you got to read an article, So that's the issue, really. I think maybe the answer to it would be, take a highlight from like this interview, like just a little short 30-second clip where I say something extraordinary, hopefully, and feed that out to social media, get it into people's feeds. It's about that. It's not about doing the research, the backup. People just don't have time for that, really. There's just too many distractions.
They don't have the attention span either. I mean, let's face it. I know that YouTube, the CEO of YouTube, is saying long form is the future, but you wouldn't know it by the views. It's when I'm doing just like what you said. I started creating clips and reels, and that's where my traffic comes from. It's but there's a gold mine of cool information in those interviews that I wish people would dig into and listen to, maybe while they're driving down the road.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So I worked for the TED conference as music director for 12 years, and we filmed all of the TED Talks back from the early 90s. And so that, again, there was this gold mine of information. And when we first went to cable TV with it, they said, yeah, but these chunks of 18-minute speeches, there's no way to fit that into a TV format. It doesn't work for advertisers. It's just not going to work on cable TV. So we were turned down by cable TV, and it wasn't really until YouTube and that kind of streaming came along that we decided to form our own channel and put all of the TED Talks out. And it turned out that 18 minutes is a great chunk of time, because that's the time people spend on a treadmill. That's the time they have commuting to work. That's the time they have like in their lunch break to do something a bit different. So you never know what units of currency of people's attention are going to come back around again.
Well, when you do figure out and you start adapting to it, then it changes again. It's just what we're in. I just do what I do and try to adapt where I can, and so far so good. I want to be respectful of your time, Thomas. How much time do we have? Because I don't want to.
Well, I have to get off by 1:30, basically. So.
Okay, all right, good deal. That's perfect. If you were talking about all this and all the changes, I'd be curious to know if you were starting today instead of back in the 80s like you did, and you were coming out with, She Blinded Me with Science and that type of thing. If you were just starting today, what would be different about how you pursued your career versus back then? With all the technological changes, market changes, industry changes, what would you do different compared to back then?
Well, I probably wouldn't be doing music for a start. I think we're not really at a sort of inflection point in music, right now. But I think that in filmmaking, in AI, in graphics and video and so on, there's amazing things going on. And before anybody pipes up and goes, oh, not that uncanny valley stuff and all of that, putting actors out of work and cutting down rainforests to power up the plants. Before you get all negative about it, I have to say that I think that any art form, be it music, filmmaking, fiction writing, whatever it may be, it evolves over time. There is progress, and you can look back through rose-colored spectacles at a previous era of one of those genres and think, well, it was better then than it is now. But you can't put the brakes on the advance of technology. It's just going to happen anyway. So as it's happening, as it's evolving, there will be some people that are the Luddites, that are the resistors, that are negative about it, the fearmongers. There'll be other people that are plunging into it and figuring out how to get creative with new technologies and showing the world the way forward. Believe me, when synthesizers came along, lots of people were saying, this is the end of real music. I've seen that over and over again, that kind of thinking. But that to me was just an open invitation to dive in there and go, yeah, but what if you did this? What if you tried this with it? And I think the same is true with AI. And I think that what happens, to music and filmmaking and so on as a result of AI, there's no God-given right of film studios to own screens. There's no God-given right for record companies to own your listening time, as a music fan. Things are going to change, and it's really up to the artists to paint a rosy picture of the future and show the way forward.
I agree. My concern right now with AI, and I'm loving it, it's helped me with some of my creativity and such, but and I've got some stuff rolling out later this year where I've used it, but it'll be obvious that it's AI, so it's not like I'm trying to hide anything. But the concern I've had, and I'm not an artist, but I would be interested to get your take on this, with the buyout of all these music catalogs, big deep pockets buying these catalogs or certain rights. I realize artists are retaining certain aspects of it, but for the most part, there's these big catalogs being bought by big money, and then you have AI taking place. What does that make the future look like for those catalogs, and maybe for the creation of music downstream, maybe after we're gone? Do you have any thoughts or predictions on that at all?
Well, the construct of a catalog being owned by a company, whether it's BMG or whether it's some venture capital firm investing in music futures, that construct, is that the natural way for things to be? No, a couple of 100 years ago, somebody sets up in the market square and starts playing, and they get a crowd around them and they get coins thrown at them or rotten vegetables. It's like, who is to say that the right state of the world is for big companies to fund artists, own their catalogs, and then license them out? I don't think that is the way things naturally need to be, maybe for a period in time, but I think going forward into the future, that's not necessarily the case. So I'm not suggesting that the right thing to do is to exploit, artists and exploit catalogs. I'm just saying, let's not assume that the one construct of the music industry that we've grown up with is the right way for things to be, and a new technology that threatens that is necessarily evil.
I see. I'd just like to see AI do the accounting much more accurately for people, especially out of streaming. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, it would be great, and we should get paid. There's no reason for us not to get paid on the spot. Part of the reason the music industry survives is they wait 12 or 18 months, to pay out to the next person after they've taken out their big chunks. So, that's not a very fair system either. I think streaming, as we know, the way streaming is paid for is not fair to artists. So those things need to get rectified. But you want AI to do the grunt work. You want AI to be an assistant that helps us spend more time doing the right stuff and less of the grunt work. Gotcha.
Well, Thomas, this has been a lot of fun. What I would love to do sometime when you have the time, I'd like to take this very subject and when we're not pressed for time, let's talk an hour or so about it. I think it would be fascinating. I think a lot of people would like to hear more what you have to say about all of that. And hopefully people watching this will catch one of your shows. You're not going to be coming near where I am, but when you do, I'm definitely going to reach out, and hopefully we can meet backstage and bump elbows or something if the health environment's that way. Well,
I'm sure your listeners are all over the country and all over the world. And so go to my website, thomasdolby.com, look at the tour dates, come down and see me when I'm in your locale. And I look forward to seeing the audience there.
Yeah, very much. And buy the book. Have them buy the book. So. Well, Thomas, thanks a lot. Be safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you down the road. And let's do one of these again and go more in depth on stuff, okay?
All right, Andy. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been another fun-filled episode of Boomerocity with your host and producer, Randy Patterson. The theme song is Roll the Dice and is recorded and used by permission from Quentin Hope. Quentin is spelled Quinten, and Hope is Hope. And you can find out more about Quentin at quentinhope.com. Post-production is done by Cardinal Sins Productions. The Boomerocity name, logo, and content is copyright protected. Segments may only be used with written permission by Boomerocity and/or its assignees. Inquiries should be directed to input@boomerocity.com. Copyright 2025.